This is the Geneva Conventions. Convention number 1. This convention protects wounded and infirm soldiers and medical personnel who are not taking active part in hostility against a party. It ensures humane treatment without discrimination founded on race, color, sex, religion, or faith, birth or wealth, etc. To that end, the convention prohibits torture, assaults upon personal dignity, and execution without judgment. It also grants the right to proper medical care and treatment. Convention 2. This agreement extended the protections described in the first convention to shipwrecked soldiers and other naval forces, including special protections afforded to hospital ships. Convention 3. One of the treaties created under the 1949 Convention. This defined prisoner of war and accorded such prisoners proper and humane treatment as specified by the First Convention. Specifically, it required POWs to give only their names, ranks, and serial numbers to their captors. Nations party to the convention may not use torture to extract information from POWs. Convention number 4. Under this convention, civilians are afforded the same protections from inhumane treatment and attack afforded to the sick and wounded soldiers in the first convention. Further, additional regulations regarding the treatment of civilians were introduced. Specifically, it prohibits attacks on civilian hospitals, medical transports, etc. It also specifies the rights of internees and saboteurs. Finally, it discusses how occupiers are to treat an occupied populace. Protocol 1. The signing nations agreed to further restrictions on the treatment of protected persons, according to the original conventions, and clarification of the terms used in the conventions was introduced. Finally, new rules regarding the treatment of the deceased, cultural artifacts, and dangerous targets, such as dams and nuclear installations, were produced. Protocol 2. In this protocol, the fundamentals of humane treatment were further clarified. Additionally, the rights of interned persons were specifically enumerated, providing protections for those charged with crimes during wartime. It also identified new protections and rights of civilian populations. Protocol 3, adopted in 2005 to add another emblem, the red crystal, to the light of emblems used to identify neutral humanitarian aid workers. The United States has signed and ratified the 4 conventions of 1949 and Protocol 3 of 2005, but has not ratified the 2 protocols of 1977, though it has signed them. Disputes arising under the conventions or the protocols are settled by courts of the members' nations. Article 49 of the convention, or by international tribunals. The ICRC has a specific role given by the Geneva Conventions. It handles and is granted access to the wounded, sick, and POWs. Article 3. Commonly applied to all 4 protocols of the Geneva Conventions. Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions covered for the first time situations of non-international armed conflicts. Types vary greatly and include traditional civil wars or internal armed conflicts that spill over onto the other states, as well as internal conflicts which third parties or multinational forces intervene alongside the government. Common Article 3 functions like a mini-convention within the larger Geneva Convention itself and establishes fundamental rules from which no derogation is permitted, containing the essential rules of the Geneva Convention in a condensed format and making them applicable to non-international conflicts. It is required that humane treatment for all persons in enemy hands without discrimination. It specifically prohibits murder, mutilation, torture, the taking of hostages, unfair trial, and cruel, humiliating, and degrading treatment. It requires that the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked be collected and cared for. It grants that ICRC the right to offer its services to the parties to the conflict. It calls on the parties to the conflict to bring all or parts of the Geneva Convention into force through special agreements. It recognizes that the application of these rules does not affect the legal status of the parties to the conflict. Given that most armed conflicts today are non-international, applying Common Article 3 is of the utmost importance. Its full respect is required. The Geneva Conventions provide for universal jurisdiction, as opposed to a more traditional and limited territorial jurisdiction that was designed to respect the sovereignty of states over their citizens. The doctrine of universal jurisdiction is based on the notion that some crimes, such as genocide, crimes against humanity, torture, and war crimes, are so exceptionally grave that they affect the fundamental interests of the international community as a whole. It renders the convicts or accused of such crimes to the jurisdiction of all signatory states, regardless of their nationality or territoriality of their crime. Every state bound by their treaties is under the legal obligation to search for and prosecute those in its territory suspected of committing such crimes, regardless of the nationality of the suspect or victim, or of the place where the act was allegedly committed.